Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight.
The central bank governor says he's conservatively pegging Hurricane Dorian losses at $2.5 billion.
The Grand Bahama minister slams criticisms of the post-Dorian response.
Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Kyle Joaquin. Heartless and negligent is how Progressive Liberal Party Deputy Leader Chester Cooper described government's decision to make Abaco and Grand Bahama VAT-free for a year, but exclude Ragged Island. Cooper says while he is happy for the tax breaks for those islands affected by Hurricane Dorian, there are many unanswered questions.
They've announced that they're going to do it for Grand Bahama and Abaco. Still can't say when. But they haven't announced it for Ragged Island.
Days after the Prime Minister declared Abaco and Grand Bahama VAT-free zones for at least 1 year, PLP Deputy Leader Chester Cooper demanded details on how this policy will work, when it will take effect, and why Ragged Island has been left off that list 2 years after it was left uninhabitable by Hurricane Irma.
Get it into play, reassess it in a year, get the same concessions for Ragged Island, VAT-free in Ragged Island, concessions for fishermen to buy boats, to benefit from the small business fund. If there are 60 people there, it can't be that much more expensive. So why exclude them from any hurricane relief effort? It's really baffling to me.
Government's VAT relief policy means affected residents and businesses will be exempt from the payment of VAT on a range of items like unprepared food, water, clothing, shoes, beds, hardware, and building supplies. The Prime Minister also announced on Friday that government is removing VAT on boating materials. But Cooper said it seems Minis simply enjoys making grand announcements without thinking things through.
So now we have NEMA 2.0. We have a disaster ministry. We have the Office of the Prime Minister. We have the Ministry of Grand Bahama. We have a parliamentary secretary in Abaco. We have 2 consultants, including the President of the Senate in Grand Bahama. 2 in Abaco. People are falling over each other. Very little's getting done.
The Exumas and Ragged Island MP said he will continue to push for the same concessions that are set to take effect on Abaco and Grand Bahama to be extended to the residents of his battered constituency.
In effect, what we have is a government 2 years in who's done very little. And the fixes in Ragged Island are very simple. We see trailers going into Abaco and Grand Bahama. Well, Ragged Island needs a trailer for their school and for their clinic and for their government building. Fairly simple fix, but yet the government does very little. So if they haven't forgotten, they're either being very heartless or negligent or incompetent.
Amid reports of deteriorating conditions at Kendall Isaac's Gym, which serves as a shelter for hundreds of evacuees, Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minis is defending the state of the shelters. Minis told reporters he could sleep easily in those shelters. Vonnie 2 reports.
This video making the rounds on social media shows living conditions inside Kendall Isaac's Gym, which has served as a shelter for hundreds of evacuees whose homes were destroyed in September when Hurricane Dorian devastated Abaco and Grand Bahama. Hundreds of occupied cots line the gym floor, while bags and boxes are stacked up against the wall. In this video, a man says his aim is to bring to the attention of the Haitian government the living conditions of Haitian nationals inside this gym. The person says they are suffering and they cannot take it anymore, but they do not know what to do. He added he knows the Haitian government will somehow see this video and assist Haitian nationals staying at the shelter or bring their plight to the attention of international organizations. Other evacuees have complained of deteriorating conditions, including uncomfortable beds, poor quality of food, and no privacy.
We have plenty of people inside, everybody mixed together, woman, children, man. Then they have little matches.
Food had me catching diarrhea for like a couple days, so I had to ease up on that.
Some evacuees say they have searched for apartments in New Providence, but have discovered that finding accommodations in a safe area is too expensive. Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis defended the state of the remaining shelters, telling reporters he could easily sleep there.
I have visited those shelters, and believe me, I can sleep very easily in those shelters. The food is good, as far as I'm concerned, so I don't know what their complaints are.
In the days after Dorian, there were 10 shelters set up across New Providence to house more than 2,000 evacuees. 2 months later, 5 shelters remain open on the island, housing just under 800 people. Minnis was asked when those shelters would be shut down.
As soon as we can provide the proper accommodation, the domes within the Abaco area, Grand Bahama area, you find that those shelters, individuals will be mobilized, returned back to their respective places.
Government is currently working on temporary housing in Abaco. 250 domes will be set up near Spring City for at least 3 years at a cost of $6.4 million. Reporting for our news, I'm Vonique Tu.
All right, thanks, Vonique. Well, Hurricane Dorian caused losses worth at least 20% of the country's gross domestic product, according to Central Bank Governor John Rowe. Jared Higgs has that.
Rowe says the $2.5 billion in losses came to housing, utilities, infrastructure, and commercial premises. Now, he says that number could be even higher.
I've seen estimates which I can't cite directly, which have much higher physical damage.
Rowe made the revelation as he presented the central bank's monthly report covering the first 3 quarters of 2019.
So I know that the 20% of GDP is not a figure that is out of range.
Rowe says economic activity came to a halt on Abaco and Grand Bahama during September, an impact that sent shockwaves throughout the country as visitors and overall arrivals dropped. From an economic standpoint, the country was lucky that the storm came during the slow tourism months.
For the timing of the storm during the slower part of the tourist season allowed the Bahamas to preserve strong tourism performance over the first 9 months of the year.
While positive growth is still expected to be recorded in 2019, Rowe says it will be nowhere near the sort of growth that would have been realized had the storm not passed. He says the worst is yet to come when it comes to the economic woes brought about by the storm.
The setback from the hurricane, however, is projected to be more noticeable in 2020, with resort facilities in Abaco expected to be absent during the peak winter season and Grand Bahamas economy only expected to be partially recovered.
Strong U.S. consumer confidence and employment are positive signs for the Bahamas' economic outlook. Additionally, Rowe says the country can offset tourism losses by attracting displaced businesses to New Providence and other undamaged islands. However, Rowe says it will be a while before Abaco and Grand Bahama can make meaningful contributions to the country's growth.
The economic infrastructure in the northern Bahamas should be sufficiently restored to support resumed growth in 2021.
Rowe says recovery for the uninsured will be even slower. Reporting for Our News, I am Jared Higgs.
State Minister for Grand Bahama, Senator Kwesi Thompson, slamming those who have criticized the government's response in the aftermath of Hurricane Dorian. Thompson gave an emotional recount of his first-hand experience during the storm, defended first responders, and bashed politicians. Jasmine Brown reports.
Thompson's emotional contribution came more than 2 months after Dorian devastated Grand Bahama and Abaco, as he insisted now is not the time to debate or criticize.
I cannot divorce myself personally from this. So, if I appear rattled or emotional, it is because it is rattling. It is emotional for me. Hurricane Dorian was undoubtedly the most devastating natural disaster we have ever seen in the Bahamas, having in fact been recorded as one of the most powerful storms in modern history. For me, like many Bahamians in Grand Bahama and in Abaco, it was a life-changing experience.
Thompson was emotional as he recalled the horror residents in Grand Bahama faced during Dorian. As he lauded rescuers and first responders, Thompson also called on the opposition to stop playing politics.
Consider the fact that the social services workers were the ones who went out and prepared the shelters. Consider the fact that the Defense Force officers, it's not the politicians, the Defense Force officers, when you criticize, consider the fact that they are the ones who went out.
The State Minister for Grand Bahama made the comments as senators debated the Disaster Preparedness and Response Amendment Bill 2019, which imposes mandatory evacuations and curfews. Opposition members in the upper and lower chambers have opposed the mandatory evacuation bill. But Thompson says now is not the time for division or debate, as monster storms like Dorian are becoming more of a reality for the Bahamas.
We could have our political debates. And I'm fine with having a political, I give my political punches just as good as I get them. But for this one? For this one?
Out of order. Disingenuous.
This is not one that we should have any kind of politics with respect to this one. Not this one.
Thompson says while it may seem like both Abaco and Grand Bahama are down, they are not out as they slowly recover. Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
More than 2 years after Hurricane Irma leveled parts of Ragged Island, leaving the small community without a government school, post office, administrator's office, police station, or clinic, the Prime Minister is insisting the island hasn't been forgotten by the government.
No, Ragged Island has not been forgotten. The commitments that we made, we will continue.
However, the state of the island 2 years after Irma suggests otherwise. When our news visited Ragged Island last week, the island was in a sad state, as if the storm had just passed, and many residents said they feel forgotten. Despite promises of transforming Ragged Island into a green island, very little to no progress has been made since the powerful hurricane hit in 2017. Still to come, Rand Memorial Hospital repairs to begin next week, plus new judging procedures for Junkanoo. Stay tuned.